Hello, friends, and welcome to your Monday edition of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. I can't bring you news of a win, but I can bring you red-hot chat and insight from two very wise men, Andy Warren and Stuart Watson. I'm Mark Heath. Ipswich Town dominated a game yet again on Saturday, and they didn't come away with 3 points. So, friends, is it, as people referring to it, one of those days, just another one of those days, or is it perhaps something, a wider trend that we need to start getting a little bit worried about? We shall discuss that in due course, but first of all, let me just introduce the boys, starting with a man who is wearing a very fashionable new haircut. Andy the Hutch Man, Hutch Hogan, high top Warren. How are you?
I feel analysed. My hair is what it is, but I'm told it's different, and it's never different. It's never normally different.
It is different.
I'm told it's different now.
It's verging on a skin fade / footballer's haircut, my friend. As I was just saying in the green room, the lad down the road, 17 years old, has the same haircut.
I'm 36, mate.
Yeah, but you're still cool, aren't you?
No, obviously not. I was at my brother and sister-in-law's yesterday, and they noticed my hair and said, "You know, that would be good. You just use a bit of mousse. That would help with that." I'm not using a bit of mousse.
Have you ever used products on your hair? Do you use products on your hair?
Sometimes to keep it from billowing out at the sides and becoming like proper Jonah Hill afro from Superbad. Look, but never. Probably never to actually, but obviously back in the day I used to put like a massive handful of that glumpy, gloopy, massive sticky gel on my hair and just put as much of that in.
It was like bright blue, wasn't it?
Yeah, just put as much of that in as you possibly can, because that's cool. Wet look, because that was cool.
Have I discussed on here my hairspray habit and how that got me into trouble? Have I mentioned that on here?
No, you haven't. How can hairspray get you into trouble?
Well, back in the day, people who knew me at school would attest to this. In the I was year 9, year 10, I had the standard curtains like that.
Yep.
But because I've got quite voluminous hair, Hutchie, not quite as voluminous as yours, but it's quite left to its own devices, it will stand like that. I had to use a lot of hairspray to corral it. A lot. We're talking like a bottle or so a week, and it was like rock hard. And one morning, I walked down the village shop to get my usual bottle of hairspray, and I just so happened to be behind the head teacher, or kind of loitering around as he was chatting to the shopkeep, who I overheard telling him about her concern about a lad who was buying loads of hairspray from the shop. This is, so I quickly kind of exited, and my hair was ridiculous from that point forward, which led to a change of hair, and it was actually a bit of a flat top that I introduced. Anyway, I digress. Stuart Watson, you used straighteners on your hair back in the day, and as punishment, you were made bald. How are you?
Yes, that is accurate. I did.
You used straighteners.
I was very much sort of through school days was the French crop with that. I was more the wax, that really sort of beeswaxy, sticky that left if residue everywhere. That was that sort of in between as Simon French crop, and then more probably uni days became a bit of an indie haircut with a big sweepy fringe that I sort of straightened and stuff like that. So yeah, and now I have this.
You got that. That's what you're working with. I can see skulking in the lobby, man like Roscoe. I'm going to bring in friends, just to give you an insight. We said we'd start recording this at 10 a.m. It is now 23 minutes past 10, and Ross has just appeared. So I'm sure he's got an excuse. Let's find out what it is today. More personal stuff, no doubt. Ross, why are you so scandalously late?
I was waiting for a link, to be honest.
Oh, don't give me that. We never ever send links now. What are you talking about? We just agree a time and then meet in the lobby. That's a pathetic
my bad.
excuse.
My bad.
Awful. Ross, what do you make of Hutchie's new fashionable haircut?
Looks cool.
Is it really different? Is it really different?
Yeah.
Seriously?
I think it really is. When I saw you on your post-match reaction video on Saturday night, I got quite excited, for want of a better word. I believe I started messaging the group saying Hutchie's had a skin fade. He's got a cool haircut.
He's also got giant hands. That was the big
Yeah,
takeaway.
the angle on that was interesting, wasn't it?
I think the fact that we're all using the word cool here would suggest that we're probably not cool. Oh, that's a really cool haircut. That's what your mum would say when you go round to see her yesterday, I imagine.
That's very
cool.
Trendy. That's the one. Very trendy.
With it. Friends, we are now made complete with the addition of Ross. So we have 3 wise kings now to break down what happened at the weekend. I think there's quite a lot of interesting chat to be had after, in terms of the wider picture and obviously the injury concerns now. But shall we start just by talking about the game? And I'm going to start with you, Stewie, because you penned Stu Says yesterday. And I think you came to the conclusion that all's okay. But what did you make of the game itself?
Really enjoyed watching Ipswich is the first thing I want to say. I think if you were one of the 25,000 fans that were there of a home persuasion, beyond the frustration of the result, you'd have really enjoyed the performance. I think we all have to remind ourselves how much more enjoyable and entertaining this Ipswich Town team is to watch. Kieran McKenna makes the point that he'd much rather be in charge of the blue team than the red team in that sort of scenario when it's attack versus defence. Wasn't that long ago that we were falling out of love with it a little bit, and fans were, season tickets were dropping and attendances were dropping because Ipswich were the red team in that scenario, the team that were kind of the underdogs and having to grind it out, and we didn't particularly enjoy that. So there wasn't a lot wrong with that performance apart from the finishing touch of a goal here and there to turn a good performance into a good result. But that first half was, for a 20-minute spell, was some scintillating football in there.
Scintillating, Andy.
Yeah. Early on, I thought they were nearly immaculate for 20, 25 minutes. They're just crisp. Everything was crisp, well oiled. Everybody was on song. They were operating at speed. They came out the traps. They obviously scored very early, which is task number one in games like this, which played out exactly how we expected it to play out in terms of the pattern of play and how that settled down. But that's the real frustration. They did everything. They did what they needed to do. The biggest hurdle they overcame by scoring an early goal, and from there, I'm sure almost everybody inside that ground expected Ipswich to go on and comfortably win that game from 1-0 up, because the trouble against teams working like Cheltenham comes when you don't score. And that's why I guess it's really, really frustrating, because the job was more than half done.
On a side note, great to see Wolfie score. The celebration obviously marking his newborn baby. Boys, have you had a chance to chat to Wolfie about becoming a father yet? What advice would you give him? You've both been where he is now. What's that like, those first few days / weeks? This is relatable. People can relate to this.
I feel it feels like a bit of a kind of a. This is the thing. This is why it's so different for Luke. Like, we took some time off work and lived in a little bit of a bubble with like our daughters and wives separately. We did this separately, Stu and I. Just to be clear, this was not
just a stress.
This wasn't a group activity. We do some things apart, and welcoming new life was one of those things. But athletes don't get to do that. Like, I wasn't surprised that Luke didn't play at Bracknell on Monday when there was the option for some players not to play. But he was training before that game. He was back in training within like a day or so of becoming a dad. So that's always really, really fascinated me. And I know it's something that Stu's always been really interested in as well. Just how an athlete deals with that. Because when we had our little girl, just took a couple of weeks off work and kind of worked out how to be a dad, which you don't ever really do. But not sure how Luke would have been able to do that. He'd be back at work within 2 days.
You're right, though, aren't you? I mean, obviously you had a chat with Freddie Ladapo in the summer as well. He's in a similar position. But rest and recovery is so important to an athlete. And rest and recovery, Stu, is not something you get a lot of, is it? When you've got a new baby.
No, I would imagine they might play that athlete card at home. Well, I've got to be in tip-top condition for training in the morning. I'll retire to the spare room and let you get on with it. I don't know. But it is fascinating. I think sort of sports people and becoming sort of fathers is an interesting, deeper chat to find different people's experiences. There was what was the name of the BBC sort of radio documentary recently with Carl Robinson and Paul Warne on there, and there was
Moment of truth.
Yeah, and there were sort of differing views from those two, where sort of Paul Warne was a bit bemused that I think it was Dan Barlaser had just become a dad and wanted to miss the next game because of the birth or something, and he couldn't quite get his head around that. He was talking about in my day, I sort of well, that's it. You just if I was there for the birth, I was there. If I wasn't, I was playing, sort of thing. And Carl Robinson actually took more of a kind of a modern view on that. That yeah, family comes first, and just because they're footballers, it doesn't mean they should be any different to the rest of us. So yeah, I'm sure Luke's world is a little bit different at the moment, but nice of him to get that goal at the weekend.
Absolutely. That was a massive digression. So I think we left it as a Town got the early goal, then they got pegged back. Roscoe, you're someone who's yet to procreate, as far as I know. Did Town score a second goal, though?
Pictures say different things, but it didn't happen, did it? Didn't score another goal. I was thinking while you were chatting, I was trying to think of a very good word because Stu said a good word. And I was like, my vocab isn't as high up as Stu's. So I just went, it was the first 30 minutes.
Okay, so we've had scintillating, immaculate, and you're contributing. It's all right, bud. It's all right.
Right. Yeah,
Not too bad. Not too bad. What did you make of the wider game, though, Ross? Obviously, Town dominated. We said that they may have actually, in fact, have scored a second goal.
Yeah.
But overall, what did you make of it?
It's what I expected, to be honest. I thought I'm pleased we actually came out of the game fast. I was hoping we were going to score an early goal, and that's what we did. And yeah, nice to see Wolfie score. Nice to see a back post, goal as well. Someone like the back post, making sure, because we don't do that often. We need to do that more often. But yeah, I want to say this right now. Some listeners may be thinking, "Oh, don't say it," but fair play to Cheltenham. I thought they dug in deep. They blocked every ball. Of course, they had a few little moments. You could say they were shithousing, but you're going to do that when you come to Portland. I don't think that was that bad. But yeah, it's one of those days where you just don't know how some of those shots didn't go in. And of course, we'll talk wider on that. But just another one of those days where you just think, how didn't we score? Again.
On that harness, did it or didn't it cross the line? I don't think there's any kind of conclusive evidence on that one. People are stopping still frames as the ball's coming down off the bar, and you can't tell from that angle unless you're looking side on. It was pretty close from what you can see, but I don't think anyone can conclusively say. There's no goal line tech used below the Championship, obviously, but it wasn't just that chance, was it? I mean. I didn't realise watched a bit of the game back this morning, and the Leif Davis header just before they equalised was a really big chance, unmarked header at the far post. Cameron Humphreys has a massive chance just before half time as well, and I think if Ipswich either go 2-0 up or restore the lead before half time, then they go on to really enjoy themselves and probably go on to win by quite a comfortable margin.
I'm going to stick with you, Stu, because you said a couple of weeks ago that games like this are going to be some of the hardest games that Town have to play going forward. And again, so it proved. And obviously McKenna alluded to that after the game, didn't he? But also Wade Elliott, I thought in his post-match comments were quite interesting, where he said, it's not luck. We practiced for this. We everything we worked on this week was basically being under the cosh and how we defend and how we put bodies on the line, sort of thing. Who's that knocking on the door?
That might be the window cleaner at my house.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, Stu, talk a little bit about that, because like Rossi says, there is some praise to be dished out to Cheltenham as well, isn't there?
Yeah, much as there was after the Lincoln game as well. Defending is an art form. Proper bodies on the line, stuff from them. Yeah, these games are going to be difficult, and there will probably be other frustrating days like this. McKenna talked in the build-up how Cheltenham would have probably looked at the Lincoln game as a reference point. Other teams now, sort of the so-called bottom half teams in this division, will now look at both these two games and think that's how you go to Portman Road
Mm.
and get something. It's frustrating now, but what I will say is that there is a higher ceiling to what Ipswich can achieve playing this way. Like, they could have changed things a little bit, maybe, I don't know, go more direct, or to find ways to win these sort of games. But we all hope Ipswich are going to get promoted, and I think this style of play is a style of play that can carry them a lot higher, because when you play better teams, I think this has got a higher ceiling in what can be achieved. So it's just, I think these are just some little wrinkles and frustrating days that we need to kind of suck up along the way, and trust the process is the catchphrase and the buzz phrase, isn't it? That it will over the long haul take Ipswich to where they want to be. There'll be more good days than bad with the way this Ipswich Town team is playing. That's for sure.
Mm. Hutchman, I suppose we have to talk about the Cheltenham goal, because it was massively against the run of play, and there's no other way of saying it. And I don't really like highlighting goalkeepers, because they make a mistake, and invariably that means a goal's been scored against them. But you have to say, disappointed with Walton for that one.
Yeah, definitely. 2 weeks, 2 games in a row for him, where he'll has conceded goals that he should have done a lot better with, and goals that he would expect to do better with. But it's not just him on this one. The whole team got sucked over. An outstretched Humphrey's leg couldn't cut out a ball across. And then Ipswich are far too narrow. You shouldn't, as a goalkeeper, you should not be beaten from that position. But it's also a difficult position to defend as a goalkeeper when you've got a player with that much space at that kind of angle. Because are you expecting a near post shot? Maybe, but are you from that angle? Should you also be anticipating a ball across the box? Yeah. And it's taken him by surprise, but ultimately it's gone through his body, and you can't let a ball go through your body like that to concede. But it's not that there's other factors in the build up to it, I think. But obviously, when you watch it back, it's not great, for a goalkeeper that's more than capable of saving that.
How about the performance of players as a whole, Hutchie? Because young Cameron Humphreys had to come in and start. Obviously, we talk about Don Ball in a bit and that injury news. How do you think he did? I know from the ratings, I think he was your joint man of the match.
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching him. I got a few responses to that. So he was at fault for the goal. I'm not sure he was at fault for the goal. I think he could have cut that out if he was maybe had an extra foot in height. I really enjoyed watching him. He's just so positive. That in the first half, the amount of through balls that he played in really tight positions, particularly to Davis, down that left side. Slightly different approach to Evans. Evans is more of a sweeper. He a bit of a lateral player, whereas Humphreys plays a bit more vertically and is a bit more progressive. Both good approaches, but I enjoyed watching Humphreys just play those through balls and try and thread. That became harder as in these games. We know the lines get more and more compact and bodies get more and more compact. That became more and more difficult as the half went on, and Ipswich were working more from the edge of the box rather than threading from deep. But I don't think there's any issue with him in that side whatsoever. Played well, I thought, with Morsey, who I thought played well.
That's a good point about Evans being a sort of a lateral player. I think in these sort of games where against a low block where people are just defending their box, you've got to push and pull and shift players out of position to create the space. And Lee Evans can do the Hollywood switch of 60 yards and immediately find the spare man and find the space. Maybe that was an example of a game where you probably lack his unique skill set.
Yeah, we'd have been talking after this game about how much of the ball Evans had, and that's really important, isn't it? Because if you've got you're going to get the ball in the middle of the Cheltenham half. That's where Ipswich attacks could begin every single time if they wanted to, and that's where Evans would have dominated possession and like you say, switch the ball from side to side, maybe get the fullbacks involved that bit more as the game went on. But I thought Humphreys played well, but he is a different player to Evans. They're all different players to Evans, aren't they? Let's be honest. There's not an Evans replacement in there as such.
Someone who was replaced early doors, Roscoe, was of course Janoy, the boy. We got to see KVY for extended minutes. How do you think he did?
I thought he did okay. Yeah, it was sort of sad to see John go off because he had, his last bit of action was him marauding forward, weren't it? But no, I thought KVY did okay. He attacked. He had a bit of threat as always, but he hasn't got the same connection as he with Wes Burns as Janoy has. But I thought he did okay. I don't know if the boys want to say anything else.
I thought he did okay. Yeah, no, I thought he did okay. It's a really positive game for him to come into because in terms of defensive stuff, he wasn't asked to do an awful lot. It was all kind of forward facing for him.
I think it was him who shrugged off the ball. Cheltenham could have scored a second, couldn't they, straight after the first? And I think he got a little bit out-muscled in the build-up to that one. But yeah,
could have scored with his first touch almost. But
that shot at the near post saved, didn't he? But yeah, it was a shame seeing Janoy go off because it was his sort of marauding run that had led to the harness shot coming down off the bar, wasn't it? Early on, I think that's just precautionary. Janoy coming off with the number of injuries they've got at the moment. I think he just said I've got a bit of tightness. I don't know where, but they thought it was prudent to take him off and take no risks.
I feel tightness all the time. I'm just always tight.
Where are you particularly tight, Hutchie?
Just my back. When I stand up, it takes me. I have to kind of unfold myself when I stand up. I kind of walk. My first steps after standing up, I kind of walk, leaning forwards until I take a few seconds to just straighten myself up. That's because I sit in this chair talking to you lot all day.
Yeah. Oh dear, oh dear.
Old man.
Sound of a tiny violin there. Ross, have you started to get any old man pains yet?
Only when I play football or in a car for a while, but I shouldn't be moaning at 26. So give me a couple more years, and yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely, friends. We've talked often and in excited tones about Town's arsenal of attacking weaponry and intent going forward. So, Stewie, talk to me how you felt when Cameron Burgess was brought on and chucked up top, because we talked about Town having this wonderfully analytical approach and all these options, and then in this game they just go, chuck the big lag on up top, see what happens.
Yeah, it was only that was 90th minute, I think, before they did that. It wasn't for any sort of prolonged spell, but I think this was a game that highlighted how the depth of the squad has diminished in recent weeks. We talked about Ipswich having these sort of specialist players that could come on and help change games in these sort of games in particular, where you're getting frustrated and a bit of patience is required. You look back to earlier in the season, Greg Lee could come on for a Leif Davis on the left and maybe provide a bit of physicality. Just some fresh legs. You got to remember, Leif Davis is playing his first real season of week in, week out football, and he's such a high octane, dynamic player. I think just not being able to replace him with fresh legs is one. Shawnee Aluko is someone that can come on and just calm things down and keep the ball and maybe thread that little final pass when it's all getting a bit tight and intricate. No Tyrese John Jules for fresh legs up front in this game. That meant that sort of Caden Jackson is your striker that you can bring off the bench. I don't think this was a game for Caden Jackson. Away from home against Sheffield Wednesday or Plymouth, where they're coming at you and there's some space for the counter attack and space to run in behind, that's a Caden Jackson game. When it's against a low block and there's just no space in behind, he needs space to open his legs and sprint, and there was none of that there for him. So a few of these injuries are just starting to mount up. It's still a good squad, don't get me wrong. Most people in this division would kill for it, but they're just starting to lose a few little specialist weapons that can help when they hit that sort of frustrating 70-minute mark.
The one they did have, though, was Kyle Edwards, and I thought he looked really, really good when he came on. A real freshness about him, but some invention. Was able to kind of chop his way past a few and create a little bit. But that these lack of options now may be highlighting the fact that Marcus Harness and Connor Chaplin are not at the high standards they were at earlier in the season. I think I'm right in saying they've scored once in 10 between them now. When we were talking a month or so ago about it doesn't matter about the strikers not scoring goals because there's goals galore from the 10 positions, and they're still good players, of course they are. But even if you've not got sort of a Luco to give them that respite, it maybe to kind of mix it up a little bit. Even obviously the John Jules injury we're talking about is in the context of strikers. I really like John Jules as one of the deeper players. Early days of the season, he was coming on in one of those deeper roles. I really liked him there. It's something a bit different, a bit more physicality and power from the deeper attacking roles, and he's kind of not been used there of late.
He's one that could have been quite useful in this game. He's quite good in tight areas. He's got that nice little body swerve that can go past somebody. He's decent in the air as well, so he might have been one that could have attacked some of those crosses in the box. So he was just another one that was missing a little bit. I mean, we forget about Ghassan Ahadmi. You talk about Burgess coming on as the big man up front or whatever. Ahadmi would have been the physical option. That's why they went and signed him, for these sort of scenarios where you need to turn to someone who can just be physical and robust and create a bit of chaos. So we forget about him sort of having not been available for a little while as well. So hopefully this is just the period of the season where Ipswich have had their bad luck with injuries and they can ride this out. And then we're talking about Christmas time, hopefully sooner, with some of these players coming back, and other teams will hit their bad spells. The Christmas games come thick and fast, just as Ipswich are getting some of these back, and they can just ride out this period until the options are boosted again.
Shall we have that chat then, the injury thing? Because that's something that I wanted to discuss. Andy, you're writing a jaunty analysis of the injury situation for tomorrow's print and web. So it's worth, I think, just refreshing who's actually out and when they might be back. So obviously Dominic Ball was the big news from the weekend, potentially out for the season with a knee injury. He's done his meniscus, which, boys, turns out I've done the same thing. I went and saw a consultant last week and I apparently thinks I might have torn my meniscus. I've got to have a scan and then it might be surgery. I reckon I might have to wait a little while for that though. So Ball out, Tyrese John Jules out for what was a quote, weeks, not months.
I think it's the other way around.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Months, not weeks. Okay. So he's out for a long term as well. And that obviously adds to Greg Lee Evans, Shawnee Aluko, Ghassan Ahadmi, and obviously Burgess and Kamara just getting back. So just by way of marking time out, Shawnee Aluko was saying Christmas, yeah? That's what.
Yeah, an unspecified Christmas period. It's the in and around.
The classic in and
footballism.
around.
He's an in and arounder, as is Lee Evans. They're in and arounders.
Can you be in and around at the same time? I don't know. Anyway, so Lee Evans is what? Is he Christmas as well?
He's in and around, yeah.
Okay. Greg Lee?
Coming weeks. He's getting close.
Is he back on the grass?
I think he might be back on the grass. Yeah.
Okay. And Ahadmi, obviously, he's done his foot. Is he also an in and around Christmas?
No. He's an in and around the Buxton game.
Ah, okay. So he's more imminent. So they're the main, well, all the injuries there. Hutchie, give us a sneak insight into your jaunty analysis when you look at that.
My first thought is that I wish I hadn't used the word jaunty this morning when we were discussing what this might be. Because it will be what it will be. They miss these players. Is the ultimate upshot of all of this, each in their own individual way. We've talked about most of them already, actually, in terms of what's being missed. But they each bring something different, and by not being around, you each lose something different. Every single one, their absence is covered by somebody who is a good football player. Like Lee Evans was covered by Don Ball until Don Ball got injured. He's now covered by Cam Humphreys, who we've been talking about in really glowing terms for several weeks now. They've all got cover, but we were talking about the strength of Ipswich's squad being their major card. That card isn't quite there in the same way. That's the upshot upshot of all of this, really. But ball aside, 2023 they'll all be available, and Ipswich will be strong there. Ahadme, dare I say it, could be like a new signing when he returns in a couple of weeks. I'm particularly looking forward to watching him kind of get his Town career up and running, actually, because he hasn't yet. It hasn't really started for him here yet, and he could just be that different option. Looking forward to seeing him, but all of them missed in their own way.
Can we get the klaxon going? Because someone is gonna say that at some point, like a new signing. So you've fired the starting pistol there for Ahadme. Stewie, is there any? We talked there about the kind of lessening of options. Town have got players out on loan in those positions that are maybe weakened at the moment. Is there any argument for bringing any of those back? Matt Penny, for example, is doing particularly well. But Motherwell, Rakeem, the Dream Harper, not really being dreamlike at Exeter, it has to be said. But
No, I think Penny, I don't think I hope with Greg Lee's back sort of in the next, we're talking about him being back in training this week. There's probably, by the time January rolls round, hopefully he'll be back and up to speed. So there'll be no need there. Central midfield will have to be a sort of suck it and see, I guess, come January. Lee Evans, hopefully we sort of back in the picture by then. Panucci Kamara should be sort of fully up to speed by then. So, yeah, again, by the time January comes round, if you were talking about being able to do it now, there'd be a discussion. But by January, you probably won't need to. If there was somebody who was going to be called back, it wouldn't be Rakeem Harper. I think it would be more likely Idris El Mazouni at the moment. Out of those two sort of central midfielders out on loan.
fair enough. Roscoe, of all those players we talked about, who's the biggest miss?
Like Lee Evans has been a big miss. I think him and Morsey's partnership at the start of the season has been good. Don Ball, it's been interesting for me. I think he's at times. I didn't think he played really well at Bracknell, to be fair, but then it sounds like he's been, was playing with an injury, so it's sort of like maybe that's why. But yeah, Sonny Aluko's been another one. But I think he's been Shawnee. Sorry, Shawnee. But I think it was Andy. You did a piece with him about, or McKenna saying that he's still been fantastic in the dressing room. So I'm sure even with these players injured, they're still at the training ground day in, day out. I'm sure they still interact. They're not like just chucked in a room. I'm sure that's where they are most of the time, in a rehab room, getting a rehab. But I'm sure they're not just chucked there like, yeah, we'll speak to you when you're back. You're not involved, but I'm sure they're always involved. So yeah.
I'd rather have Aluko being fantastic on the pitch, though. I think right now him and Evans would be. If I could suddenly summon two of them from their sick beds, I think probably Evans and Aluko would be the two right now, along with John Jules. With John Jules, I think he's been asked, a lot of burden has gone on him that maybe wasn't expected to go on him. I think he started really well for Ipswich and has maybe outperformed expectation and has become sort of a really big player for Ipswich there. But I really liked him in those withdrawn roles, and I think with Harness and Chaplin maybe not quite on it, Aluko and John Jules just being in that attacking unit would just strengthen the whole thing up. But Aluko hasn't been a factor for a couple of months now, and I think his impact has been forgotten maybe a little bit.
I agree with all of that. Let's not overlook Greg Lee as well. I think he was playing a really important role off the bench, such a powerhouse, and I think he's sort of his specialist skills just in terms of rotation and impact off the bench have not helped as well. So yeah.
I think they've got by better than I expected them to without Greg Lee. I thought his absence would be more noticeable. But you're right, he does bring a different dimension to that position back there. They're fortunate that Kane Vincent-Young can play both sides, but he's not Greg Lee. He's very different. Obviously, the Bracknell game he played really well at left back, but that was Bracknell in an FA Cup tie. There's a reason Greg Lee was signed, and to not have him has been really, really big.
Ross, you're desperate to say something. You've had your hand up. You've been tapping yourself on your head. What do you want to say?
I just want to apologise to Greg Lee if he's listening. I wouldn't say I forgot about him, but I should have said about him because he has been a big miss, and I saw him on Saturday just walking on the touchline. And it's like, oh yeah, can't wait to see him back. So yeah, apologise to Greg Lee. Look forward to it.
He wasn't locked up in this sort of self-isolation room that you've put all of the injured players in at Playford Road.
No, he's allowed out on match days are allowed out. So yeah, so he was there.
Disgrace. Where is his commitment to getting fit again?
Yeah,
Rehab.
Locked up in that little room.
Yeah. Friends, we got away there from the game. I just want to come back to the game just for one more point, Stewie, because I was quite interested with Kieran McKenna's comments to you after the game. And it's always difficult to read how they're delivered when you're just reading them in black and white on a page. But he said things like, I could say things about the ref, but I'm not going to.
I wouldn't read too much into that. That was one very, very calm comment. This wasn't certainly in the pointed words in the direction of Danny Cowley post Portsmouth. That was just I didn't think the ref was great, but I want to talk about us. But you said you're never quite sure how to read them. Just take it for as granted that they're calm and considered.
Always calm.
Always the same. Very very level, Mr. McKenna. Win, lose or draw. I think he's quite good. You quite often see managers in that sort of golden hour after a result being quite emotional, and then we often then speak to them maybe a few days later in the build up to the next game, and their analysis changes quite a bit because they've watched the game back 2 or 3 times, they've calmed down, they've seen the bigger picture of it. McKenna seems to be able to get to that position quite quickly, like even after the Charlton game, after all the drama of stoppage time, even then he was able to kind of do quite a good bigger picture analysis. The same again at this weekend. And I think ultimately he'll say that performances lead to points over the long run. If you produce that performance 46 times, how many times would you win the game? And the answer would be, I don't know how many, but a lot. And sometimes you watch football and you go, they're getting results, but I'm not sure, they're going to get found out at some point because the performances aren't there. And I think we've got the reverse of that at the moment, where Ipswich have got the performances. They haven't got the results that those performances have deserved. More often than not, if you went through all the games this season, you could probably find loads of examples of games where they probably deserved more. And I don't think you can probably find a single example of a result that they've maybe not quite deserved. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So that gives me a lot of heart that, just keep doing what you're doing, stick to it, and they'll be all right. They'll be fine.
Okay. Any other notes from the game, Hutchie, Rossi, before we move on to the wider picture?
I've still not seen the handball penalty back that was booked, but the penalty that was like deeper into the second half. The one that I thought was a penalty was Freddie Ladapo being pulled back inside the box. That's the one on first viewing that I thought was a penalty. I just really the way that chances were kind of spread around this team. The list, when we did our post-match video on Saturday night, Stu had a list of them out in front of him, which I dare say he's still got in front of him on his little notepad now. But if you look at the players that have had chances in this game, we talked about Leif Davis from left back having a header. Both centre backs had other chances to score. Obviously, Wolfenden did. Edmondson had one fingertip saved by the goalkeeper. Wolfenden had a headed chance that he probably didn't commit everything that he needed to score that. Kane Vincent-Young, right back, he had a shot. Morsey, shots from outside the box. Humphreys should have scored. Marcus Harness has hit the underside of the bar and headed the ball wide. Connor Chaplin has had shots blocked. Ladapo's had a really good header saved by a goalkeeper who by that point I think had a broken nose. So the whole team basically had chances to score apart from Christian Walton in this game. And then obviously Panucci Kamara's hit at the inside of the post in stoppage time as well, even the substitutes coming on and doing it. So chances galore from all areas of the pitch.
This isn't like they threw the kitchen sink at Cheltenham but didn't create anything at the end of it. That would be more of a concern if you're just like they camped in. And if we were talking about Ipswich had 75% of possession and all those shots, but they were all the Lincoln game from memory. There wasn't as many clear-cut chances as this one, was there? It was like, but ultimately it was kind of pot shots from outside the box that were blocked. And this was a different story. There was enough chances to win 3 or 4 games of football in this, and you just reeled off all those chances there. It's interesting then that we get the, for me, far too simplistic debate of, well, it's the striker's fault. Get a better striker, get someone better than Freddie Ladapo, and we win that game. He wasn't the one that missed all those big chances that we've just reeled off. And people will go, well, he should be getting on the end of more of these crosses that are flying through the box. I've watched back quite a lot of this game this morning. He worked really hard. He charged down the goalkeeper. He put pressure on the centre halves. He dropped into that little 40-yard space, back to goal play, sort of facilitating others. On any other day, Ipswich win that game by 3, 4, 5 clear goals, and we don't have that discussion about Freddie Ladapo today. We don't have this big discussion we've just had about the injured players that they're missing. I know you can't just sort of shrug it off because it's happened twice in the space of the last month or so, but I honestly think Ipswich are in such a good place at the moment, and we need to keep sight of that.
Yeah, Rossi, I particularly enjoyed game day. I always enjoy game day, but again, it was a really good 23 minutes after the game on Saturday with various people getting involved, some really sensible thoughts and understandable frustrations. And one of those clearly is around what Stu just touched on there. We've been talking about is we referred to Lincoln as, oh, it's just one of those days. And then Charlton's a freak result. That will never happen again. That would never happen again. And then Cheltenham, 74% possession, 29 shots, 15 corners, and they don't win. So although for all the reasons that the boys have just said, clearly Town are in a good place, there does have to be some conversation, doesn't there, around, well, we can't just keep saying it's just one of those days. If it happens again, not a one-off. Where do you stand on that? And what were the fans saying to you after the game?
Yeah, just most of them were just like, how have we not won that game? How has that goal not gone in? How has that shot not gone in? How have we not scored from that corner? Of course, there was some like, have we got a plan B? Have we got this? Have we got that? But I think most just were sensible. Most people were sensible. It's just one of those days. Once again, praising Cheltenham because they did block, they did everything. But just a frustrating day. Like, I know the one cliche is like, oh, we could be still playing now, we would still not score, which could possibly be the case. But
I'd love to see that tested. We quite often hear that very often. That we still sort of like. I'd love to see that tested one time. They just keep going for about 48 hours and see what the score.
That's a great idea. Maybe once a season, a manager has a card, and in a game like this, McKenna can just walk out and just play it. And then
what's the scenario? Does it end when they score? Or do they have to play all day from that point? They literally have to play until midnight.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? The cliche is we could have played all day and not scored, isn't it? So I guess that's what you have to test. You then have until midnight to score.
Nice.
And we'll see what happens. I really like that. Can we make that happen? Can you use your power?
7 more hours of 7 hours stoppage time.
What great value that would be as well.
The board has gone up.
That'd be the when you play it, isn't it? That'd be when you play it. McKenna's had a little word with the guy who's got the board, and it goes up. We're playing till midnight. We're playing all day.
Yeah. You'd have to play it really late just to because Cheltenham think, oh, we're going to get a draw. We're going to get a draw here. And then you play it really, really late.
Oh, I love that.
He's gone for the all day card.
I mean, yes, people will say logistically that's not going to work, and there's myriad of reasons why you can't do it. But I say do it. Imagine that. What? Because it might only take them 5 minutes. But imagine if they were still playing at 11:30 at night.
Is it still like a golden goal then? So if you score that ends the game.
I think so, don't you? I mean, it's your idea, Stu. I've just run with it. What do you reckon?
Well, it's a working idea.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, part of the cliche is we would have played all day and still not scored. So I think you have to end it on the goal.
On the goal, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's go with that.
Why aren't we in charge of football, boys? It'd be loads better.
But what if what would Cheltenham get any? Say the clock strikes midnight.
Yeah.
And it's still 1-1.
I think
did Cheltenham get anything extra for?
I think there has to be some sort of point. Yeah, maybe a points bonus. Like they get in rugby. So if McKenna's played the will play all day and they don't score, I think Cheltenham have to get a significant points bonus.
If they see out the 7-hour stoppage
you-
time,
yeah,
they get
if
the
you-
win. Even
if
though
you-
it's technically
yeah.
a draw, they get
What
the 3
what
points.
happens if they score? Does the
They should. I would argue that should almost be like a 4-point win.
I think it's
If-
more
if-
than 4 points.
If you've gone against the card and
Ipswich get
picked,
docked points.
I think was it the bonus? They call it bonus point win, don't they, in rugby? If you score a certain amount of tries, so I think it has to be something along those lines. If you defied the will play all day card, I think you have to get more than a point.
do you get any extra substitutes?
Well, again, I mean, this is like a live production meeting here on this idea, but
This is essentially next goal wins in the playground, isn't it? And
Yeah.
when that next goal comes, nobody knows. It could take 7 hours.
It's next goal wins as long as it's scored before midnight, isn't it?
Hmm.
Do you
You wouldn't
reckon
play it on an evening game, would you? Because
No.
you're only going to get 2 extra hours then.
that'd be poor use of the card? You wouldn't. That would be silly. I mean, I'm not sure about the crowd as well as we get to sort of 10 to midnight, where they'd be able to lift themselves.
The true diehards.
Who's left? Well, that clearly is the highlight of today's pod, boys, and that's a revolutionary idea that I want to see introduced in football. But just for dotting the i's and crossing the t's, actually, Stu and Ross have both spoken there about the wider picture with Town and why there's many reasons to be happy and not concerned. But just stating for the record, given these things have happened recently, there is no reason, as far as you're concerned, to be worried about these.
no.
Just another day.
Well, no, just think back a year. How good a team are Ipswich Town now compared to November of 2021? It's night and day. They're a brilliant football team to watch, but I do think we kind of need to remember sometimes that this is a League One football team. Stu used the example in the thing he wrote at the weekend of Manchester City, who had a similarly frustrating day at home to Brentford and lost that game, had chances, but had far more clinical football players on the pitch because obviously they're top flight, world class football players. I think you're going to have days where the clinical side of it just isn't here with a League One side, but they're playing really good football. They're coached fantastically. They're good players. They're a unit. They're a proper team. They're good players for this level. And there's no reason to believe that they're not going to be firmly in an automatic promotion fight, but you can't afford to have too many more days like this. They'll face more of them because if you drop points in games like this, you're losing that little bit of the leeway that you have for like recently. Ipswich lost at Plymouth. Wasn't a disaster to lose at Plymouth because they were picking up all the points they needed from the games they really needed to win. Can't have too many like this because then if you're kind of lacking that leeway. But they're in a really good place. They're picking up the right number of points per game. They're scoring enough goals in general. And if you look at up and down the league, and they've made such big strides from where they were a year ago.
Even like you're talking about strides a year ago, I'd say almost you talk about the Lincoln game, people talking about Lightning striking twice here. I think they're very different types of games. I know people will go similar amount of shots, similar frustration, but the Lincoln game was born out of a really slow start where they didn't get the crowd on side, and they rectified that on this occasion. The Lincoln game was loads of possession but didn't really have a load of clear-cut chances. They rectified that in this game. It was just that the goal didn't come. So this was definitely the Lincoln game. When we talk about it being one of those days, there was things that could be improved on that. I think this is genuinely just one of those days. This was like Kieran McKenna's parting comment was, "Don't walk under any ladders, lads, tonight," or something like that. As he walked out of the press room, he just knows that you could. If you replayed that game 100 times, Ipswich would probably win it 98, 99 times, wouldn't they? So, yeah, they're moving forward week by week, month by month. They're getting better.
Have you come up with another idea?
Yeah, I think there's another card. There's another card.
Yeah.
Right, lads. 99.
We replayed it.
They play it 100 times.
Yeah,
and you have to win it 99 times to get the points.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That would be a bit of a thing to get through, wouldn't it? You play
Brilliant.
that card, yeah. I think there's definitely mileage in this testing of cliches though around football. Let's make them cards. Let's make them playable. I think that's the big takeaway from.
Maybe we
from
could
today.
put together a pack of cliche cards as a Christmas gift for
And every
people.
manager gets one. They can play at some point during the season. The cliche cards. Boys, let's move on from this, shall we? And I know it's something that Hutchie will want to talk about. It's the pizza trophy, baby. We found out finally on Friday night, at a frankly ridiculous time to be having any kind of cup draw.
What's that all about?
Madness, Stu. I mean, you were the one poor bastard who had to cover it at 10 o'clock on a Friday night.
Yeah, after a championship game, whose clubs aren't involved in the competition. Great, let's just do it then.
And Town have got Pompey at home, Hutchie. How do you feel about this? We know your views on this competition are long stated, but you don't really want to be playing Pompey at this stage, do you?
Got to beat him sometime, haven't you? I'm not sure. Who knows what kind of team Portsmouth will put out for that.
When is it? Next week?
Yeah, I don't think the date's been officially set, but the ties are being played next week, aren't they? I don't think Ipswich's has been set in stone yet, but I imagine that'll be Tuesday of next week. Yeah,
could be the Wednesday, couldn't it? I guess because they're playing
the following Sunday. They're playing.
They play the following Sunday, so that might give them the sort of the maximum gap between the two ties. But yeah, at some point next week.
While we're on this, the Bracknell Cup game, Sunday at 5 o'clock. More nonsense. What on earth is going on, boys?
That one's really irritating because I don't think I can get that excited for anything at 5 o'clock on a Sunday that doesn't involve being on a sofa.
A roast dinner. That's what you want to be doing at 5 o'clock on a Sunday. Not
5 o'clock on a like. There's obviously the Premier League regularly play games at 4:30 on a Sunday, but it's 5 o'clock. It's odd, isn't it? And so harsh on the Buxton fans. I think
it's their big day out, isn't it?
I know it's not anymore. It's not. It's their Sunday night in Suffolk. Is what.
Just bizarre. Really bizarre. Any thoughts on that, Rossi? You've been quiet for a while.
Rubbish. Just rubbish. Just, yeah. We all know our thoughts on that. They don't think about the fans. Overseas fans, like, who's really watching Buxton Ipswich Town in the second round of the FA Cup?
In the middle of a World Cup as well.
Yeah.
Spain v Germany kicks off that like quite soon after that.
Is that right? Wow. I think I know what I'll be watching. Neither of them. I'm on holiday.
Country file.
Yeah, exactly. Friends, we're coming to the end of the show now. Rossi, I think it's worth noting because every so often it's nice to push Tractor Girls talk. The girls had a big win yesterday in the FA Cup.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting for you to expand on that. But yeah, big win. Luton Town.
That's your job.
First round. Yeah. Might be able to expand on it. But yeah, I was at Burton Rovers Football Club. Shout out to Chicken George. That was the food we had on offer after the game, and it was very nice. Me, I like my chicken. But yeah, 7-0
that's the big takeaway from the game. That one.
Yeah, pretty much. There were 7 goals, and we're through to the second round of the FA Cup. But yeah, that was that. And also a big shout out to Sophie Pescott, who made her return. We're hopefully going to have her on Track the Girls Talk this week. But yeah, she's been out for a year with an ACL injury. So it was just great to see her back on the pitch. Seeing players return for such a long layoff is always good to see them return. And she took about 4 minutes to get involved in setting up a goal. So she didn't need to worry about not getting involved. She got right and stuck in. So yeah, 7-0 win against Luton. Happy days. And the draw is at lunchtime, isn't it? Yeah, so this will be out by the time that will be hit. So it could be Norwich, could be anybody, or it could just be a boring tie. But the thing is, we could have a double FA Cup header, because it's the same weekend as the Buxton game. So, yeah. So the girls could play at lunchtime on Sunday, and then you've got the 5 p.m. Buxton game on the Sunday to finish off. Hopefully they're at home. Because I think they'll kick off at 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and then town fans can race down to Portland Road to see the Buxton game. It's a big. Isn't Fabio Wardley fighting that weekend as well? Saturday. He is. He's fighting Saturday for the British title. Me and Rossi are going to go and see him tomorrow. Biggest fight of his career against a guy. What a weekend! If everything comes to fruition, boys, it's Monday. It's 11:15, but we aren't going to have another pod this week
at least not a traditional pod, because we're all off on a Jolly Boys outing to Manchester on Wednesday to see if we're finally lifting some silverware at the Football Content Awards. Thus, we'll be in bits and travelling back on Thursday, which means you've got a special pod you're going to put out, Andy. I'd like you to talk about that. And I'd also like you to talk about Exeter. How are you feeling about that? Because on Friday, having travelled to Manchester, you'll then be off to Exeter. Exeter had a very good win at the weekend, by the way. Beat Posh, didn't they? Giovanni Brown scoring loads of goals. So Hutchie, talk a little about Exeter and this special pod that people have got winging its way towards them on Thursday.
Yeah, Exeter. Stu and I have kind of taken Exeter under our wing a little bit. There's a podcast we've stumbled across called My New Football Club, who is fronted by comedian and actor David Earl, who you might recognise from Derek. He was in Derek and Afterlife with Ricky Gervais, basically playing the same character in both. Disgusting bloke, basically. He's a very funny man, but he's moved to Devon and has started supporting Exeter sort of inside the last year. And he's quite funny. And we spent a bit of time with him online last week, just talking about football players, their legs, which hairstyles and things like that, which I think is how he's found his way into supporting Exeter. So hopefully people enjoy that. Something a bit different. Some people might not know who he is at all and find it very bizarre and weird. Others might find it interesting, but we enjoyed it, didn't we, Stu?
We did. We did.
That'll be going out on Thursday in place of the usual midweek pod, as I say. It'd probably be better, let's be honest, boys. How much of that was you quoting office quotes back at each other? Was there any of that? I know you're all massive Gervais fans, clearly.
I think we managed to behave ourselves, didn't we? I think we were well aware that that probably wasn't the time or place.
Fair enough. Stewie, how are you feeling about travelling to Exeter?
Well, Exeter is a game. I think this is a completely different type of match to the one that we've just talked about from Cheltenham. Arguably, these sort of matches suit Ipswich going away from home, taking on a proper footballing side, which Exeter are by all accounts, giving it a real good go following promotion. They've got some real momentum behind them, some talented players. You mentioned Giovanni Brown, Jay Stansfield, great story surrounding him going there on loan from Fulham. Plenty of others too. Archie Collins in midfield gave Plymouth a real good go in the Devon derby recently. So just looking forward to this as a proper toe-to-toe football match, very different to the one we've just seen. Hopefully it suits Ipswich a little bit more. I think it'd be good for Town to go and get a good positive result there, hopefully a win, and just sort of nip any of these sort of malingering doubts that have come after Charlton and Cheltenham. Just get back on that horse and get going again.
Right then, we're coming up to an hour. Just by way of finishing with a bit of fun, Hutchie, we have to play Guess Hutchie's shirt over the right-hand shoulder. It looks to me, so it's mostly white with purple on the collar and the sleeves. The sponsor is Fortis.
Would you like it brought a bit closer?
Yes, please. Yeah. For those not watching, and it's got purple all down the side as well. Fortis is the sponsor. Any thoughts, boys? My initial.
It's quite old.
My initial guess would have been Fiorentina, but I'm assuming that's wrong.
Yeah,
Anderlecht.
Anderlecht, correct.
Wow.
Ooh.
Go on, Rossi.
Pluck that out the bag.
There we
Go
go.
on, mate. Anderlecht shirt from 2001.
Is this another new edition or just a cycling
Yeah,
on
it
the
is
rack?
actually new
Yeah.
edition. Very very pleased with it. I like Anderlecht shirts.
Boys Adidas.
Yeah, the boys there.
Of
Quite
course
like
he
them.
knows.
Yep.
Well done,
What does Mrs. Warren think of that one, Hutchie? Your latest purchase? She a big fan?
Yeah, loves that one. Yeah, big fan of that one.
Do you get requests to pop it on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like
Put your Anderlecht away 2001 on, will you, Andy?
Yeah. She's more of a fan of goalkeeper shirts.
Oh, really? Okay.
She likes the padding.
Excellent. What a mental image on which to end today's show. Friends, I hope you enjoyed it. There's been a lot of chat around various things. We've come up with an idea which could probably make football loads better as well. So look forward to FIFA introducing that in due course. Friends, just a reminder to please support our sponsors. Obviously, you know about Manscaped. Use the code KOA for 20% off and free delivery of all their excellent clobber in the run up to Christmas. And also, of course, Ginger Pickle. If you like your pickle ginger, search for Ginger Pickle, as Mike Bacon will tell you. And there's obviously an opportunity which ends this week to win 2 pairs of tickets to the Fleetwood game on December the 2nd. Look on our social media for details how to enter that. We're drawing a winner later on this week. And also, please, friends, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, because we've not had one of those for a while. And it helps us lift visibility in the iTunes charts and more people can find us. And that's tremendous. We're going to Manchester on Wednesday. Then the boys are off to Exeter this weekend. Boys, any other business?
No other business.
No other business.
Superb. We shall see you on the flip side of what we've just discussed to break it all down even further, although I will be off. So look forward to more bacon next time we speak. Have a great week, and we'll speak to you again next time.